lives, criminals whose motivations are the subject of worldwide speculation, and attorneys who can hold entire courtrooms spellbound as they make their closing arguments. Sketches that began as faceless ovals on my sketchpad have emerged as the scowling features of Donald Trump staring down a prosecutor, Harvey Weinstein gesturing his manacled hands toward a court officer, the eyewitness Donald Williams extending his arm to identify Derek Chauvin as the cop who killed George Floyd, the grandfatherly face of Bernie Madoff, whose gentle features had fronted the largest fraud in financial history, and the stony glare of Jahar Tsarnaev, the teenage terrorist who, with his brother, had detonated bombs that ripped through crowds at the 2013 Boston Marathon. This work can be stressful. It is always demanding and sometimes upsetting. I have drawn scenes, including a man's execution in the electric chair, that have left me feeling guilty, washing and rewashing my hands to expunge something more than pastel dust. In other cases, I've been brought to tears and had to pull my face away from the drawing I'm working on, knowing that even a little moisture will disfigure the pastel strokes. Despite these pressures and sometimes conflicting feelings, I could not imagine doing anything else. The courtroom is simply the best place a figurative artist could hope to do their work. Every human story imaginable passes through its doors and onto my sketchpad, an inexhaustible supply of material for my pastels. While trials can lag with long stretches of procedure, obscure evidence, and sidebars between judges and attorneys, dramatic moments, from high-octane confrontations to the silence that falls as a verdict is taken in, are never far away. It all makes for a job that is as addictive as it can be frustrating, one I can't imagine giving up any more than I foresaw myself getting into it in the first place. After 4 decades, it is hard to imagine a different life. But things didn't always seem so destined. For while I was perhaps always going to be an artist, it would be years into my career before I ever considered stepping foot in a courtroom. My life in art began so early that I am reliant on other people's memories of it. My mom would put crayons in my hand when I was in the crib, watching as I peeled off the paper and stared at the colors, entranced by something I would spend much of my life working with. Soon I was putting the same equipment to good use. My dad was a civil engineer and would sometimes give me architectural plans he was working on, letting me color in the trees. My grandmother also played a part. An elementary school teacher, she kept reams of paper and crayons in a special art cabinet for me to use, and always let me pick the next color from her box of yarn as she crocheted blankets made of many different squares. I always looked forward to afternoons spent with her and my grandfather in Brooklyn, especially on the rare days I was granted admission to his garage, a private sanctuary that doubled as the workshop where he built furniture. Its centerpiece was a massive dollhouse of his own design, set up on a table, a full 5 feet across and with its own light switches, picket fence, and walls you could move around. A whole tiny world for me to play in, filled with delicate miniatures, including couches and a magazine stand. In retrospect, this was perhaps the first indication of my affinity for arranging people and objects into compositions that intrigued me. Back at home, my artistic education was beginning. Mom was a substitute teacher and amateur painter, and our house was a place where music, art, and culture could be found. I think the first time I discovered I had a deep appreciation of art was when reading my parents' books on the Ashcan School of Art, whose scenes depicted ordinary life in New York City from the early 1900s. People hanging up laundry, grocery shopping, going to work, eating at diners, and watching prize fights. I was also enthralled with Reginald Marsh's Coney Island scenes and John Sloane's South Beach Bathers. Already an affiliation for group portraits, depicting the way people react to situations and relate to one another, was growing in me. Like any aspiring artist, I got into the habit of drawing whenever I could. Doodles in my sketchbooks, and cartoons that I would put in birthday cards for friends and family. By my teens, Mom was letting me use her oil paints in the mini studio she had set up in our basement at home in Long Island. Clearly, I wasn't loving every aspect of high school, because one of the paintings I did showed me trying to saw my way out of a classroom covered in jail cell bars, which the school principal was guarding with a rifle.